So if all of that other stuff was easy, then you come down to the valuation. And I can almost guarantee you this will always be hard. Um, because ultimately how you value a company can greatly return or can greatly affect down the road how much the various parties make. And I'm going to show you a couple of examples in a subsequent video where I illustrate just how important that can be. But the problem is it's really all very much art and not a lot of science in it, despite the fact that we'll do a lot of this in Excel spreadsheets that will imply this certainty about it that just isn't well deserved. The reason is uh, a true startup, one that doesn't have any financial background behind it, everything about the future is fiction. It's made up. And that's not a criticism, it's just a reality. I've told you about First Choice Pet Care in some previous videos. What's their actual revenue going to be? Nobody knows. They haven't launched the business yet. They're in the process of doing that right now. So you're going to hear about a variety of techniques. You're going to hear about the First Chicago method. Actually, that's one of the methods that is embedded in the spreadsheets that we use. You'll hear about, well, we're going to take a present value of future cash streams. Okay, but remember, all of that's based on made up numbers. So it's all easily manipulated. All I have to do is change an assumption in my financial pro formas that will spike my income by 10%, and I get a very different answer. What do I typically see done personally? And I've never been around a venture capital deal, and those guys do valuation all the time. But again, everybody's got their own interest. As the entrepreneur, you think that you really want your valuation to be as high as possible for obvious reasons. As an investor, you think you want the valuation as low as possible for obvious reasons. But it's even a lot more nuanced than that, quite frankly. So typically what happens is what people are doing is in the background, they're doing financial modeling and they're trying to see if I get this much share of the company and the earnings look like this down the road, am I going to get a rate of return that is acceptable to me? And that's ultimately what it's about. It's not about ownership stake and can I control the company or this or that. It's about, do I think when all is said and done, I'm going to be able to make money on this investment? So the investor is likely to consider things like, is this the only time you're going to need to raise money? Or are you going to have to raise more money in the future? Well, they know they're going to get diluted by that. And again, you'll see this in my subsequent examples. So they have to factor all of that in. But beyond that, you can even do some other aspects of the deal to make this interesting. For example, in First Choice Pet Care, the investors get a chunk of the company, but they also get a guaranteed payout arrangement off of the income until they reach a certain level of percentage return. And so you can say something like the investors will get 50% of all free cash flow until they've achieved a 1x return on their investment. And so that would simply see if the investors put in $500,000, they get that cash stream until they've gotten back $500,000 is the way that that's typically worded. And so that doesn't have to do with their percentage of the company necessarily. I'm starting to get a little confusing. So my point is, again, don't think it's all just simple math. There's lots of different ways to squeeze this around, and ultimately what an investor is going to do is they're going to take the terms in their totality, they're going to look at it, and they're going to say, can I get to the rate of return I'm interested in? This is out of the gold standard MBA textbook about the rate of return sought by venture capitalists. One thing that's a little surprising to me about this chart is they depict that a seed investment, a VC, is willing to invest for more than 10 years. I don't hear people talk about that. Usually VCs are looking for a payout in less than 10 years. For our angel group, they're typically looking for something in the 30% range. If it's a really safe deal, they'll go maybe a little bit below 30%. The more risky it is, the higher they're going to go. And so this looks like loan shark kind of money. But again, we've talked about before and how so many of these things fail that when one works, it needs to work well because it's got a bunch of losers. The investor has a bunch of losers in his or her portfolio that they have to cover. What I'm going to do in the next video is walk you through an example. So I'm going to be sitting down at the computer and flipping back and forth between Excel and the slides to try to show you how this could work both in the perfect world and then in the less than perfect world. You're going to really enjoy this, and you're going to get some really solid insights about how to use Excel to do some important calculations. Look forward to seeing you then.